Welcome to A Fine Time, The Nanny Revisited. This is a podcast about The Nanny, where we recap each episode and then discuss, sharing our own unique take on each episode. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Debbie. Today we're talking about episode 97, No Muse is Good Muse. As usual, we'll start with a brief summary of the episode. After learning about the singing sensation Tasha from Maggie, Fran decides that she would be the perfect person to write Tasha's next angst-ridden hit. Fran and Val plan to wait at the stage door for Tasha after her concert, only to find themselves at the wrong theater. They jump in a cab with an annoyed and confused Jane Meadows and follow Tasha's limo to her hotel, where Fran proclaims that she's going to introduce herself as a legitimate songwriter. Instead, Fran and Val borrow uniforms from Hotel Laundry and enter Tasha's room as maids. Miraculously, they befriend Tasha, who agrees to go back to the Sheffield home, where she is forced to listen to Fran's song. Tasha rejects Fran's songwriting attempt, but then Maxwell begins describing Fran's various struggles, and Tasha realizes that she can use Fran's misfortunes as inspiration for her next album. Fran throws herself into her new role as Tasha's muse, but is willing to abandon it when Maxwell tells her that he misses her. Unfortunately for Fran, Tasha drops her like a hot potato and replaces her with Val, whose recent misfortune, having her purse and subway tokens stolen, forms the basis for a new song. Meanwhile, Niles is trying to improve himself through a 10-cassette series of how to attract women, or how to be successful with women, making himself the butt of multiple jokes. His efforts are, unfortunately for him, unsuccessful because Fran recorded over the final and most important tip with her failed attempt at songwriting. Bernadette, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, you've got everything.
Awesome, thank you. Would you like to take us to scene one then?
Yes, so we start out in the living room. Maggie is standing in front of the TV, kind of dancing along, and Fran comes up behind and joins in. Oh, I just love MTV. And, she starts dancing with Maggie. And then she's like, have you heard Olivia Newton-John's latest single, Let's Get Physical? And Maggie's like, have you seen MTV since 1982?
Mm-hmm.
And Fran's like, do you have a prayer of ever going out on another date before you're 40? And then she pauses and kind of self-reflects, do I?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, at this point, Tasha apparently comes on TV and Maggie's kind of gushing over her. Oh, she's so angry and bitter. And of course, Fran has to point out, well, if she wants angry and bitter, she should show up to her next bridesmaid's fitting. At this point, Maxwell walks into the room and he says, ah, Margaret, listening to angst-ridden um, music? I don't know what I wrote. Whatever. Angst-ridden, yeah. Before the limo takes you to figure skating class. And Maggie's like, Daddy, Tasha's lyrics speak to a lot of people. And Fran's like, especially her latest song, I'm going to grow old and die waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
And Maggie starts saying, Tasha never wrote any, and the Fran cuts her off. Honey, go learn to figure 8, would you? So Maggie leaves and Fran's talking to Maxwell. Well, at least Tasha has a creative outlet for her angst. Maybe I should write a hit song. I mean, sorry. Sorry, my handwriting's a bit off. If what gets you a hit single, if Misery, is what gets you a hits record, my diary, Sergeant Peppa.
Correct.
Pepper, she says Peppa. Maxwell's like, Miss Fine, you write a hit song? Like, he's very, like...
incredulous.
Exactly, that's a perfect word for it. And she's like, yes. And he kind of gets a little arrogant with this next statement. He's like, take it from me, someone in showbiz. It takes ability. It takes talent. It takes a sixth sense to know when you got a hit. And Fran's like, this from a man who cast Debbie Boone as Yentl, the Yashira boy?
Yeshiva, so close.
Sorry, Or Shiva, sorry.
The
Again.
Shiva, like it's a Y. But go ahead.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
My handwriting is especially horrendous this time, writing so quickly. But anyway, she's like, I can't believe you're being so unsupportive. And then she's like, I'm so good at it. And he's like, good at it? You haven't even done it yet. And Friend's like, Sixth Sense. And Maxwell calls her insane. And so Fran, but goes to kind of like touch her. And she's like, stay out of my space, and walks away. And I think at this point, the audience kind of went, ooh, in the background, right?
Uh-huh.
But Maxwell follows her and he's like, well, first of all, it happens to be my space and and he starts pointing my couch, my table. Then he gestures to her, my nanny. And Fran's like, so now I'm your nanny. Well, excuse me, but I belong to no man. And if you don't believe me, you just ask my mother. And she walks upstairs. And that
Correct.
is the opening scene. Do you have anything to add to it?
The line on which Fran ends the scene is something I've said, quoting the show, because it is just so transferable. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So next, scene 2, we're in the kitchen, and Fran and Maggie are listening. They have like these little headphones and they're listening. And Maggie's like, oh, Fran, isn't this the coolest? It's Tasha's newest song, 25 Broke and Living at Home. And like, Fran's like, Maggie, this is so freaky. I just wrote the exact same song last night. I mean, it's not the same lyrics, it's not the same music, and she's 6 feet tall, but I'm telling you, this is me. And Cece has come in and she's observed this, and she's like, well, Nanny, fine. Let me give you some advice. Stick to what you know. And Fran's like, oh, are you telling me I should say a nanny? And Cece's like, I said, stick to what you know. And Fran's like, I don't care what she says. I'm telling you. And she's holding like a notepad. This, and she gestures to it. She taps it. This is Tasha's next hit. I just got to get this to her. And Maggie's like, I don't know, Fran. Tasha's lyrics are awfully dark. And Fran's like, really? Darker than this? Hate my life. I want to be a wife. I'm going to take a knife to your daddy. And Maggie looks at her sort of in awe. And she's like, wow, Fran, that is amazing. How did you come up with that? And this is my favorite line in the scene. I don't know, says Fran. Like,
Mm-hmm. Sure you don't, Fran.
exactly. We all know where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
Bernadette, do you want to add anything?
I do not.
All right. Would you like to take us to Fran and Val at the theater?
Yes. So Val and Fran are outside some doors, and it's during the day. They're wearing their sunglasses and stuff, but Val's they it's kind of trying to be supportive. She's like, when Tasha records your song, Mr. Sheffield is going to eat his words. And you know, Fran's talking about what a brilliant idea that waiting after the concert outside the doors is a stroke of genius, basically. And you didn't even have to buy tickets to the concert. And Val's kind of like, we didn't. And Fran's like, oh, don't tell me you paid $50 a ticket. Um, and we're standing here like two schmageggies.
Good pronunciation.
Thanks. And then Val's like, she kind of pauses a moment. No. And then she's like, I paid 200. I bought it from a scalper. And Fran's like, remember this moment the next time you're bragging about your mother, how your mother was doing the trampoline into 8 months. Um, so anyway, Fran starts going over with Val what the plan is. As soon as Tasha comes out, she'll turn to her and say, at that point, Fran turns around and she says, why are you Mr. Steve Allen? Or sorry, Mrs. Steve Allen?
Yeah.
And the lady there says, because I'm too damned old to be Mrs. Woody Allen. And Val is like, oh, Jane Meadows, I love you. Because it's Jane Meadows who's out there. And what are you doing here? And Jane Meadows is like, oh, I just did Letterman like he's never been done before. tell Steven you're dead.
Right.
And Val's like, she leaves, and then Val is like, I think we're at the Letterman Theater. And Fran's like, uh-huh. You know, I think that stage door, and she gestures over where all of the teenagers are screaming and all that. That's where Tasha is. And Fran's like, like Fran already figured this out. But then
Mhm.
they notice that, um, oh, Tasha's getting into the limo. So they decide that they're going to jump into the cab and follow her. Well, of course, they jump into Jane Meadows' cab, and poor Jane's like in the middle of the back seat. And
Correct.
I kind of counted this next little bit altogether.
I did
Uh,
too.
but basically, of course, it's like, follow that limo and faster, faster. Can't lose them. Turn, stop. After they'll stop, we cut back to them, all three of them eating pizza in the back.
Correct.
And then we kind of hear a voiceover of Val asking Fran, well, how are we ever, going to get you in front of her? And she's like, oh, I'm going to introduce myself as like a legitimate songwriter.
Uh-huh.
Cut to, unless you
Maid
have something to
service.
add.
Correct. Maid service. And
Yes.
the door, Fran and Val come in the what were clearly hotel maid service uniforms. And there's a business-like woman who basically tells them, make it quick, Tasha's working. And she like peers over the cart that they were pushing. Didn't you bring any soap, shampoo, or stuff for the bathroom? And Fran mumbles to Val, oh, she wants the shampoos. Let's put them back. Okay, here, fine. And then like the businesswoman goes out like to the right, closes the door, and like Fran and Val don't really know what to do with themselves. And Fran's like, I don't know, I'm a nanny, not a maid. And Val's like, but what's the difference? And
Mm-hmm.
Fran's like, oh, that's cold, Val. And then Fran's like, let me see what's going on. Put the vacuum on, make it seem like we're working. And so Fran has gone to like peer between the two doors, and Val has turned the vacuum on, and it's one of those long like tubes at the end of a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
And Val is not very careful with that and ends up sucking some of Fran's hair into it, which gets caught. And then Fran's screaming and shrieking and telling Val to turn off the vacuum. And actually, some of Fran's, I guess, hair extensions, for lack of
Yeah,
a better word.
because
Like,
it's a big clump. Like,
it's a huge clump. If it was her actual hair, she'd have a huge bald spot.
yeah.
Like gets ripped off her head, and then Fran actually like shoves it into a vase. But of course, the businesswoman comes back and she's like, "What the hell is going on out here? What is with all the screaming?" And Fran and Val are kind of cowering together. And Fran's like, "We were trained by Leona Hemsley, so that way when we do something wrong, we must verbally abuse ourselves. Bad maid." Val chimes in, "No good." In walks who we find out is Tasha, and she says, "Oh, I'm down in the bathroom if you want to go in there." And Fran's like, "Oh no, thank you. We went before we left the house."
Mm-hmm.
And so Tasha's kind of talking to herself or to her manager, and she's like, "Oh, this song sucks. I am so burnt out. I can't write anymore." And she's like, we're now in like the bedroom, and she's like, how would you describe what she's doing? Like she's like gesticulating, but like she's like, it's almost like yeah, go
it's a
ahead.
caricature kind of almost. Like it's very dramatic in a way.
It's very dramatic. It's over exaggerated. She's like
Mhm.
pedaling her feet, shaking her arms, and she's like, she basically has been saying like, I can't write anymore. Like I can't get in touch with my anger. And then she flops angrily onto the bed. And Frank
Mhm.
comments, well, isn't that nice? Now the new girl's going to have to make up that whole bed again.
Yeah.
And Tasha gets up and she's like, I'm out of here. I got to get some stimulus. I'm going to go to Central Park. I'm completely out of touch with what's going on in the world. I mean, what is Kinko's that I keep seeing? What happens there? And Fran's like, excuse me, I've been to Kinko's. I'll tell you, if you want to dose reality, just try getting the student discount under those fluorescent lights.
Mhm.
And Tasha looks at Fran and she's like, who are you? what's your name? Again, it feels very exaggerated and weird.
Yeah.
And Fran looks down at the name tag on her uniform, Concepcion. And Tasha's like, Concepcion, you're exactly what I've been looking for. You are the voice of the people. And Fran's like, oh, not just the people. Dogs hear me too. And the manager's like, oh, just put some mints on the pillow and leave. And Fran and Val are like, oh, now she wants the mints too. Fine, give them the mints, whatever. The businesswoman says to Tasha to basically get to work. We've got an album to put together. And Tasha's like, Elaine, you're such a slave driver. To Fran and Val, she's like, she never lets me out of her sight. That's why I don't have one friend. And Val's like, oh, we'll be your friends. And Fran's like, she only wants one Val. And Tasha explains her very sad life, that she's either in a hotel or on a Learjet, that she never gets to talk to anyone who knows anything, that she needs to be with the people. And Fran's like, hello. And Tasha continues, the downtrodden, talk to me. Save girlfriends. Fran and Val are basically, it's like call and response going on. And Tasha's like, I need to be around a working class stiff. Hallelujah. And the business manager's like, where do you think you're going? And Fran's like, excuse me, but she needs to be around some hardship and suffering. Come on, let's go back to my place. Tasha's like, cool. Where do you live? Fran's like, oh, it's right on Park Avenue, next door to the French embassy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have anything you want to add?
I do not.
All right, would you like to take us back to the Sheffield home?
Yeah, so Fran comes in through the door. She's still wearing the maid outfit, and she announces, Mr. Sheffield, Tasha's in the house. And she's then apologizing about how, it's a shame Val couldn't be there, but she really got along with Jane Meadows. And then again, we talk about how, Fran explains she's a nanny. And Tasha's going on and on about how she needs to be among the unwashed masses. And
No, that she thought Fran was one of the unwashed masses.
yeah. And instead,
do you need me to say the word?
Yeah, just to make sure.
Yeah, so Frank kind of sniffs at her uniform and she's like, no, I just borrowed this from Hotel Laundry. I guess that explains why I'm a little shrunken.
And so again, we have this whole thing about how life is passing her by. And at that time, Maggie and Gracie come home. And of course, Margaret sees Tasha. Maggie sees Tasha, is like, oh my God. And she does like the awkward giggling thing she's done kind of before. Whereas Gracie is just kind of like, and this one got into Columbia University.
Yeah.
But then they get kind of sent off, and Fran calls for Niles because it's time to listen to her song. And so Niles comes in with a boombox, presses play, and you hear
do you want to sing it when we get there?
Well, I'm not going to sing it, but at first what we hear is a man on tape saying, you can get women, embrace your sensual what was the second word?
Energy,
yes. And then of course Niles is like, ooh, wrong side, and she's like, yeah. So anyway, Fran turns it on.
Do you want me to sing it for you, or do you want to sing it?
If you want to sing it, go ahead.
I mean, I will. I'm clearly good.
I have it written out, but I was not planning on singing. So if you want singing, you go for it.
Okay. Are you blind or what? Are you a man or a mouse? I want to keep my pride, but can I still live in this house? I want true love, my one real wish, but instead I got you, you cold British fish. I'm not as nasal as Fran is, but I tried.
Thank you. But yeah, it's funny because the it is that like when she in chorus, like in between, but like the subtitles have it as cackling.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, each time. So like that once Fran is done, she kind of turns to Tasha and is like, huh? Like,
Correct.
what do you think? And Tasha's like, wow, Fran, you're bad. And Fran's like, hey, I'm down with that tea. And Tasha's like, no, I mean really bad. Like for stucken or
For
however you say
Stunken, you're so close.
Duncan. The subtitle didn't have an N in
Yeah,
the spelling. So,
which is,
okay.
but we also know the subtitles are wrong when it's in Yiddish.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so anyway, Tasha's saying how she's hoping for more struggle and strife, you know. Um, that's what she needs to get her music going. She needs pain, angst, desperation. And Fran's like, well, howdy doody, and like sticks out her
Mm-hmm.
hand because, the pain, angst, desperation. And Maxwell then comes in. Oh, you did get, Tasha, you did it. And Fran's like, Tasha hates my song, I'm so bad,
I have no
she's upset.
talent.
Yeah. And Maxwell starts to like try to comfort her. Um, you're just a beginner. Your talent needs to be matured. And Tasha's like, no, she stinks.
Mm-hmm.
And and Maxwell's like, oh, you don't know what this poor woman's been through. Let's start with her being dumped by her fiance. She has no job skills. I keep her on as a nanny, yet my children can practically vote. And Fran's
Mm-hmm.
like, isn't it bad enough she tells me I have no talent? Do you have to do a recap of my whole miserable life? And Tasha, though, is excited. She's like, no, this stuff I can use. And again,
Mm-hmm.
it's very like exaggerated and kind of weird. I can't really describe it.
Yeah, I feel like every time Tasha does anything, it's over exaggerated.
Yeah. And so Fran's like, oh, tell her about the time I almost married my cousin, which is a
Correct.
reference to the Parents about Jon Stewart a couple of episodes ago.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
but yeah, do you have anything to add to that scene?
I do not.
Okay.
So we're shifting over in the house towards the front door. Niles is, I think, working on some flowers at the table, and Cece comes in and she's wearing this luscious black fur coat. So Niles says, look at your shiny new coat. Been adding cod liver oil to your diet? And she's like, Niles, you are funny. You seem to have a newfound self-assurance. And he's like, really? She's like, yes. With this kind of confidence, you can get women. Embrace your sensual energy.
Yep.
And he's a little bit annoyed. She walks off.
Well,
Maxwell,
she pulls out the tape,
oh, correct. Yes, thank you.
cassette tape, and hands it over to him.
Correct. So now we know that everyone, at least she knows, Maxwell walks in the living room and he's holding a bottle of wine. And Niles asks, may I help you with that? And Maxwell's like, no, you just stand there and look beautiful. Of course I want you to help me. And Niles is like, why is everyone picking on me all of a sudden as he's like working on the bottle? And Max was like, oh, well, we're just jealous of your sensual energy.
Yep.
And Niles is like, is nothing sacred in this house? And Max was like, that's good, coming from the captain of the Starship Enterprise. And he and Niles are working on the bottle, and Maxwell asks, where's Miss Fine? I want to have a serious talk with her. And Niles is like, oh, she's getting dressed. She's going out with Tasha. And Max is like, oh, goodness. She's getting so carried away being Tasha's muse. Doesn't she realize that being some star sycophant and hanger on doesn't make her part of the creative process? And Niles is like, no, it makes you a producer.
Mm-hmm.
And Max is like, I wouldn't run with this new confident Niles. The old butt kissing one had a job.
Mm-hmm.
I cut that as the end of the scene. Did you?
I did not.
Oh, okay. Then I will gladly continue if you want me to. Or
Go for it.
I
Yeah,
mean,
because I had some longer scenes, so go
okay,
for it.
because I think then I basically, other than the last scene, it's just going to be me talking. So,
Go for it.
okay. So at that moment, Fran is coming down the stairs, and I feel like this is one of those moments where we need to actually describe what she's wearing,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise the rest of the scene doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
She's gone through. Do you want to describe it? Or should I?
Well, again, it's like an pretty much all leather outfit. Like with a large, like, so leather pants with like large like belt.
Yeah, metal
And then you
belts.
can kind of see, I believe you can kind of see her midriff.
Correct.
And then like I think it's sleeveless top, right?
Yep. And it has a low V neck,
Mm-hmm.
it's very open.
Yeah. And then her hair and makeup are again more of like the, how would you say it? Like kind of rocker, but not like grungy. I don't know. How would you say it?
Like kind of goth, kind of rocker, kind of
Yeah.
punk.
Like
Like,
trying to look, like maybe more like heavy metal or like, I don't know, like
yes, heavy metal. At least
and
in my mind.
yeah. And so obviously like a quote unquote like tougher look. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then she has like her makeup accordingly is kind of like that heavier type of look. And she has a nose ring,
Mm-hmm.
which
What
they
about
note.
her hair?
So that again, like it's very like it's voluminous,
Yes, but
but
it's
kind of in an edgy way.
yes.
Um, and does she have like kind of a tint of a different color?
Yes. Yeah, that was what I was getting at. It's purple.
Like not all of it.
No,
Uh,
but like parts of it are actually like visibly purple, like sort of the tips on one side and the end, like, but not again, not all of it. It's like
yeah.
some sections are purple.
Yep. So definitely like an edgier look overall from what
Mm,
we're used to.
yes, absolutely. The only things I would add, so like when Bernadette says that her hair is voluminous and edgy, unlike her normal voluminous curly hair, it's like straight, it's flat, but it still has volume on the top. And I'd also
Mhm.
add that around one of her arms, she has like an armband that's black, with like some metal. And then around her neck, she has a collar
Mhm.
that's also
Yeah.
black with silver. And I think she's also wearing black heels. And yeah.
Mhm. A whole
I,
different look.
oh yes. Okay. So she comes down the stairs and Brighton stops her. Brighton's at the foot of the staircase and he says, I didn't do my homework. And Fran gets this look on her face and she's like, why are you telling me? And he's like, because I need to be punished.
And
And
walk. Yeah. Side note, ew.
yeah, a little bit.
Ew.
A little bit. But yeah, so she walks into the further into the living room where Niles and Maxwell are there and they're like looking at her and she's like she focuses on the nose ring and she's like, oh, what's the matter? Is it the nose ring you don't like? I can get rid of it. And she pulls it out of her nose and both Maxwell and Niles are like, oh, and they like recoil. And she's like, it's a clip on, you wimps.
Yeah, because like she like yanks it and pretends like it hurts her as well at first.
Correct.
And so
Correct.
they're both like freaking out,
Yeah.
screaming. It's a clip on you, wimps.
Yeah. Um, so Maxwell says to her, Miss Fine, please sit down. I need to have a serious talk with you. And so Fran tries to sit on the couch and like she's clearly having issues with her leather pants, which in fairness, I kind of didn't think they were leather. I kind of thought they were like leather, like a
Mhm.
plastic. But either way, as she's having trouble sitting down, she's like, oh boy, now I know why these rockers are so bitter and angry. And she does
Mhm.
manage to sit herself down. And Maxwell's like, Miss Fine, sometimes I look at you and you seem so innocent. Well, not tonight, but Miss Fine, I worry about you. I think you're spending too much time with Tasha. And she says, look, Mr. Sheffield, I'm not neglecting my duties, and I have to have a creative outlet too. I mean, Tasha's about to cut a new album. She needs her muse. And Maxwell just kind of gets this like sad look on his face, and he's like, I miss you. And she's like, I'll call in sick. And the doorbell rings, and neither of them get up, and they call for Niles, and he doesn't, nothing happens. They call for him again, and then we flip to a very, I consider this all the same scene then.
Yeah, I
Okay.
did too.
So they flip to Niles is sitting in the kitchen. He has his little Walkman on the kitchen counter, and he has his headphones in, and he's like mocking a date, like with a glass of wine, like toasting and interact, or like trying to pick a woman up at a bar or something. It's very awkward.
Mhm.
So we flip back to the living room, and Fran's like, oh, I'll get it. We really should get some more help around here. I just have a lot going on. And in
Mhm.
comes Tasha, who's like, Fran, how's my muse? And Fran's like, oh, Tasha, I'm exquisite. And she's like, Mr. Sheffield, can you give me a minute? And so Fran and Tasha are talking, and she's like, Fran's like, listen, honey, this really isn't a good time. I think Mr. Sheffield is about to make a move, but I'll give you something so you don't walk away empty-handed. They cut up my credit cards at Bloomie's. There's your hook, write a chorus. And Tasha looks at her and she's like, you're happy. What changed? And Fran's like, well, Mr. Sheffield said that he misses me. I should have gone back into the workplace a long time ago.
Mhm.
And Tasha's like, all right, well, then see you around. Have a nice life. And Fran's like, what? Tasha's like, my fans want to hear about broken hearts and shattered dreams. I'm glad things are going so good, but that's not stuff I can use. And Fran's like, that's it? It's over? And Tasha's like, my fans can only relate to the old you, the loser. And
Mhm.
Fran's like, oh, but one call from my mother and I'm back. And Tasha's like, Fran, chill. It's okay to be happy. I'm happy you're happy. Fran's like, you're happy? I'm happy? Boy, I got to get me some more Gentile friends.
Mhm.
And then, as like before Tasha can leave, Fran realizes that Val's walking in the door. Hi, Val. And Val's like, Fran, you're not going to believe what happened to me. Someone took my tokens, stole my purse. It's like I'm cursed. And like Tasha's doing that again, exaggerated movement things. Someone took my tokens, they stole my purse. It's like I'm cursed. And she like turns to Val and she's like, do you live with your parents? And Val's like, yeah, but I got privacy. We just installed one of those accordion doors. And Tasha and Val are kind of like walking towards the door together. Do you have a boyfriend? And Val laughs. And so does Tasha. And then, so they're gone. Fran closes the door. Mr. Sheffield, Mr. Sheffield. Oh, there you are, Mr. Sheffield. I'm so depressed. Tasha, she dumped me for Val. Now she's going to have enough material for an anthology. And Max was like, well, it's fine. This is exactly what I was afraid of. My friend's like, maybe I'm not so special. Maybe I'm not that creative. Maybe this is as good as I get. There's a beat of absolute deafening silence. And then
Mhm.
Fran's like, insert nice sentiment here. And, at this point, I think Maxwell and Fran drift over to the couch and he's like, Miss Fine, there is no one as special as you. And she's like, oh, Mr. Sheffield, you always know when to say something sweet. He
Mhm.
hands her a glass of wine. They both have glasses. They toast to here's to new creative outlets. And Maxwell says to her, Miss Fine, you're far too groovy for the music industry anyway. They are using groovy again nowadays. And she's like, yeah, but when it comes out of your mouth, it just sounds like leftovers. And so
Mhm.
Brighton comes in. He's like, do you guys care if I watch MTV? They're showing Tony Bennett Unplugged. And Max was like, Tony Bennett? And Brighton looks at him and is like, Tony is the man. Would you join us in the 90s, Dad? And Fran's like, Tony Bennett, you see, you're back in, Mr. Sheffield. And he's like, right on, holds up his hand, slap me 5. And Fran's like, and out you go. He takes his hand and puts it back on his leg. That was a
Mhm.
lot of me talking. Bernadette, do you have anything you want to add?
No, you covered it.
All right. Would you like to
So
take us to the last scene then?
yes. So we're back in the kitchen. This time Niles is listening to his kids' sets like on the boombox so we can all hear what's being said. And so again, the man on the tape says, congratulations, you've made it to the end of tape 10. And now your most important lesson, which will guarantee success with women. And then the tape starts to distort. and right, of course, whenever the man on the tape is saying this is the most important part,
Correct.
Miles is leaning in and then the tape distorts and then you hear, but instead I got you, you cold British fish. And yeah, Niles is not happy. Yeah. Niles just kind of stares and
Correct.
displeased. Um,
Correct.
and that is the episode.
Yes, it is.
So before going into our shticks, we've alluded to it a couple of times, but the character of Tasha was just very odd to me, I think. Um,
Yes.
yeah, everything was very exaggerated, dramatic, like I don't know. It was odd.
It
But
was weird.
again, she at first meets Fran as Concepcion and
Correct.
follows her home, and like obviously at some point Fran told her her name was Fran, because she refers to her as Fran and the Sheffield residence.
Correct. But we don't see that.
Nope. We also don't actually see Fran interacting much with Tasha as a muse prior to her being kind of dropped, right? Like
Correct.
you just have the little snippet of like Maxwell telling Fran's backstory and Tasha getting interested. And the next thing we know, we see Fran dressed up, ready to go out. There's the implication she's been hanging out with Tasha, but we don't actually see what that looks like. Um,
Correct. Which is also
and
weird.
yeah, like the sense of timing's weird too, because we just saw Maxwell in the previous scene, and here he is saying, I miss you. But like as the audience, we haven't actually seen any distance between the two of them, if that
Correct.
makes sense.
Correct. We also
So
don't know how long Fran has been acting as the muse, which also,
yeah,
as you point that out, that's a really odd point because Tasha was in town clearly for a concert. She probably had other concerts to do.
yeah,
How long could she possibly be there?
yeah. And the other thing, like, would you want to be the muse for as like the loser?
No. Would you?
No.
I didn't think so.
You'd
Um,
want to be, if you were going to be amused, you'd want it to be in a positive light, right?
correct. Correct. Um, but I kind of want to pick on Maxwell a little bit
Yeah.
because, like, putting aside the timing issues, which I'm glad you flagged because you're right, like, it doesn't make any sense. Um, it's we had that same situation we've had before where Maxwell's just giving her just a tiny little crumb, just enough to keep her there, just enough to keep
Yeah.
her, you know, close but not too close. He always keeps her at arm's length, and like I know this is a romantic comedy, or it's become it like that's the goal, right? Like it's the will they, won't they, etc. But like
Yeah.
in real life, that's not good. That's dangerous.
No, yeah. That's like again very much one of those things that it's like girls, if you see this, run. Or even men,
Correct.
if your partner's acting like this. And again, this is not even really a partner. This is
Thank you.
an,
Yeah.
a love interest who again, like you said, is keeping you at arm's length and just feeding you crumbs to get you to stay. And again, with just one I miss you, Fran's willing to drop everything, right?
Correct.
And so like this is one of those situations where it's like, yeah, like you say, there's like in this genre, you know,
Mhm.
people are fine with it, but real life, no. Run.
Correct. Correct.
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy, and it's it I think about like the lyrics that we hear her sing, and she
Mhm,
says, I want true love, I want true love, my one real wish, but instead I got you, you cold British fish. And
mhm.
like it's sort of one of those things like how much is it that she's trying to make to shape him into what she wants and running into the inability to change him yet being unable to let go.
Yeah, because again, that kind of makes me think of like the classic, I just want to fix him. And it's like, but in real life, no. Like, you can't fix other people.
Correct. They have to want to change on their own, and if they don't, it's just going to be a lifelong battle, which you don't want.
Exactly. So yeah, it was just kind of, especially since Fran kept saying she needed a creative outlet,
Mm-hmm.
and then she drops this so easily. So
right. I will also pick on Maxwell, and I'll pick on him a little bit later in one of our shticks about how unsupportive he is.
Yeah.
Like that is not what you want in a would-be romantic partner.
Exactly. Yeah. Because
So
she's right, and I'm glad she at least called him out on it. Because
correct.
why would you be, if you see that she's struggling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like automatically just shooting her down in
It's
such an
not nice.
arrogant fashion. Yeah. Why?
Exactly. Like he wouldn't say that to one of his kids. You don't say that to people you love.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, we've seen this occasionally with his character
Yeah.
throughout the seasons where occasionally they make him a little cruel
Correct.
towards her.
Correct. And
Yes,
it's not good.
in real life, run away if you see that. That's a red flag.
Correct.
But
This is obviously not a dating
like
podcast,
belittling. Yeah.
but like we're just trying to help.
Yeah. Because again, I totally understand in fiction, like some people like things in fiction that they don't like in real life, right?
Correct.
So just making that distinction. Like we do not condone his behavior in
We do
real
not.
life.
We want Maxwell to improve. And we know
Yeah.
we cannot change him because not only is he a fictional character, but you cannot change people.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you kind of want to touch on before we jump into the shticks?
I think I'm ready for the shticks if you are.
Yeah. So first up is favorite fashion. Did you have any favorite fashion this week?
I guess.
That doesn't sound very enthusiastic.
No, I mean, so basically we see like two normal outfits on Fran, right? And so I like the blueberry suit. Like when she and Val are waiting for the for Tasha behind the wrong stage door. It's this like very light blue, like bordering on like off-white suit with blueberries over it. And I know I don't typically like, food themed clothing, but I kind of liked it. So that would be my favorite. Did you have a favorite fashion?
If I had to pick, I'd be with you on the blueberry suit.
Okay.
And there were times I was trying to be like, is that blueberries or like blue roses? But either way, it's fine. I wouldn't necessarily pair it with like the sunglasses, but yeah, of the fashion we saw this week, yeah.
What did you think of? So I had two outfits listed, neither of which I particularly loved, but I wanted to talk about. The first one is Fran's punk outfit, as I described it. She looks great. It's not her.
Yeah. I agree.
Definitely wouldn't wear it either.
Not Fran fine.
No.
Not Fran. And to some extent, it makes her seem like she's trying too hard, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. I will say I do kind of like the purple highlights, but it's not Fran. They also wouldn't look good on me, for the record.
And like that style, right? Like that kind of like the straight.
It's too severe.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Yeah. So that was one outfit I wanted to talk about, and the other one was Tasha's outfit. Or if we wanted, we could talk about multiple of Tasha's outfits.
Because it's very much like that first one we see her in the hotel room. It's so 90s to me.
Correct. But the second one we see, at the second time she's in the Sheffield home, to me just screams 70s. Like she has these weird bell-bottom pants going on. And she has like this like ruffle on the top. I also didn't find it particularly flattering for the record.
Yeah, I didn't really like either of her outfits.
I agree. And also I will say it is completely different than the punk rock image that Fran tries to cultivate.
Yeah.
So it made no sense. Okay. I've said my piece. Do you want to talk about fashion?
I do not. Do you want to head on over to notable New Yorkers then?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the title is a play, I'm assuming, on the because it's titled "No Muse is Good Muse." So no news is good news, right?
Correct.
Is the saying that's kind of playing off of. The first thing we have really is MTV.
And it's so funny that you say that because I missed that one entirely. I start with Olivia Newton-John, who is clearly referenced on
Yes.
MTV. MTV.
I think we've talked about MTV before, haven't we? Or maybe
No,
not.
I don't think we have. But MTV, it's what is it? Music television.
Yeah.
Known for music videos and music-related programming. The
Yeah.
cable
And
television network.
I think its heyday was probably like 80s, 90s,
Yeah.
early 2000s. But yeah, but like you said, Olivia Newton-John, Let's Get Physical
Mm-hmm.
is
Yes.
referenced.
So Olivia Newton-John is a British Australian actress and singer who's best known for her role in the 1978 musical Grease. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia. Let's Get Physical is the 1982 collection of Olivia Newton-John's songs, which aired not on MTV, but apparently aired on ABC in a primetime special. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Interesting. Sergeant Pepper.
Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is a 1967 album by the Beatles, also according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Yep. Debbie Boone.
An American actress, author, and singer who is known for her hit You Light Up My Life in 1977. In the 1980s, she sang Christian music. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
So Yentl once again.
Yeah, which explains why casting her as Yentl was a poor choice. Yentl, as we've talked about before, is a film starring Barbara Streisand, and it tells the story of an Ashkenazi Jewish girl who decides to enroll in a yeshiva pretending to be a man.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because this is not a reference, but in my head I thought of like whenever they kept saying Sixth Sense, like I kept thinking of the movie with Haley Joel Osment, which is not what is being referenced there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just how my brain works. And I didn't that come out like late 90s, early 2000s, I think.
Oh, you're asking the wrong girl.
Okay. Did you ever watch it?
No.
Okay. Ooh, then I'm not going to spoil it.
I'm not going to, so it's fine.
No, I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, even though it's been out for 20 plus years.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry.
no. Let's see here. Again, all of the lyrics from Fran are from Fran. They're not pre-existing to my knowledge. Jane Meadows.
Jane Meadows, an American actress, author, and lecturer known for playing intense characters. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Prior to that, Steve Allen and Woody Allen. Sorry.
Steve Allen was an American actor, comedian, composer, musician, and radio and television personality who was known as the co-creator and first host of The Tonight Show. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia. Woody Allen, we've talked about him before, writer, actor, comedian, and film director, according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Letterman, we've talked about, I think.
Correct. Before. David Letterman, former host of Late Night with David Letterman, according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Yep. Leona Helmsley.
An American businesswoman with a reputation for bad behavior. She was known as the Queen of Mean. In 1989, she was convicted of federal income tax evasion and other crimes. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
I don't know about you, but I would not want to be known as the Queen of Mean.
I wouldn't either.
I didn't know. Did you put Central Park on your list?
I did, because I feel like, we've had we've been to parks before, but I don't know if we ever said it was Central Park. So Central Park is a world famous public park conceptualized in 1858 with 42 million visitors a year. And that's according to our friends at centralparknyc.org.
Can you get Tasha in the know on what Kinko's is?
I can. So Kinko's is, and I quote, a document copying and business services store, end quote. And I should say was. That's from our friends at encyclopedia.com. It was purchased by FedEx in 2004, according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Oh. Did you put down Learjet?
I did not, but I probably should have.
Again, a fancy jet.
Yeah.
I think context clues work for that. But yeah, so did we talk about Columbia last time?
We did not know. We talked about other private schools.
Yeah.
Columbia University is a private school in New York City, which describes itself as, and I quote, one of the world's most important centers of research, and at the same time, a distinctive and distinguished learning environment for undergraduates and graduate students in many scholarly and professional fields. And that is according to our friends at columbia.edu.
Yeah, it's so funny how often whenever we read like companies or universities own like statements about themselves, we hear pretty similar things. Just
Right.
touting how great they are.
Correct. And they're just slightly different so that it seems like they have different personalities.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there's later on, whenever Cece and the scene that starts with Cece and Niles, but then Maxwell walks in after Cece leaves. There's a reference to the Starship Enterprise.
Yes. So that's actually a reference to the Starship Enterprise, which is a fictional spacecraft from the series Star Trek. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think those will probably be covered. I'm looking at some that I think will be brought up in other shticks. Tony Bennett.
A retired American singer from New York City who is currently 96 years old. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any others?
I don't think I did.
Okay. So are we ready then for Unisha-Cop? Oh, wait, sorry. Backing up a second.
Sure.
Did you look up who the actress was who played Tasha?
Yes, thank you. I didn't think to do that when I was putting my notes together, but I did pull it up. Tasha was played by the actress Ivana Milichev. I'm sorry, Ivana, I am mispronouncing your last name. Milicevic. She was from Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Sarajevo.
So, yeah. How did I? Anyway, never mind. She is. We're just going to move on. She is most known for roles that postdate her role on The Nanny, including Just Like Heaven. But before that, she actually appeared before she was on The Nanny, she was on Seinfeld for one episode. After appearing on The Nanny, she did appear on the shows Felicity, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Charmed, and I think she was also on Friends.
Wow,
reason.
like all of the late 90s shows.
Yeah, she was on Friends in early 2000s. She was also on Just Shoot Me. So yeah, she really was, in a lot of 90s shows.
Yeah. Okay. So then Unisha-Cop.
All right, so there wasn't that much, but we got 3. One is yeshiva, which is the word I was correcting you on. Yeshiva, it's basically a center of Jewish learning, means school. Shmagegis is I feel like we've talked about shmagegis before.
Yeah.
I mean, according to vocabulary.com, they describe it as baloney or hot air or nonsense. I'd say really the way it's being used, it's used more as a noun, like a human noun, like a silly or like superfluous person, supercilious person, like just a silly person. And then finally for Stunken, I mean, we probably guessed this through our context clues, but stinky, smells bad. Did I miss any?
I don't think so. Well, I mean, there's just that kind of reference to like I need to get more Gentile friends. I think implying that I think the implication there is that your Jewish friends wouldn't be happy that you're happy.
Yeah, which I didn't think that was great. I think really, I wasn't really sure what to do with that, honestly.
Yeah, because I also didn't. I was like, I know your mother guilt trips you, and that's a stereotype, but I
Correct.
don't know if that then
I mean,
flows out into
I think
people
what it
not
comes
being happy.
down to, I think it comes down to some like misery loves company type thing. But like,
Mhm,
I have plenty of Jewish friends, and I'm Jewish, and like we're happy for each other when good
mhm.
things happen. We're upset with each other or for each other when bad things happen. Like,
Yeah.
I just, yeah, I didn't know what to do with it, so I didn't even write it down.
Okay. Well, yeah, and the only reason I brought it up is so that maybe we could say that it's not the best. You know,
Fair.
so, okay. So then 90s nostalgia. I feel like there's actually quite a bit in this
I do
episode.
too. So I'll start with old cars to get it out of the way.
Yes. Because we were actually like inside an old taxi.
Correct. And we also see an old limo.
Mm-hmm. And I would also say like the whole Maggie dancing in front of the TV at the beginning. Again, I feel like these days, first of all, people are streaming more. And I often see people like on iPads or their phone. Uh,
Mhm.
and again, so I don't think people are dancing just in front of the TV as much. I could be wrong. Let me know if you dance in front of your TV still.
Exactly. Um, so I would actually say the like how she and Fran listen to Tasha's latest single, like the
Mhm.
old headphones, and I think I think they're using a Walkman too.
Mhm. So yeah, this episode we have both a Walkman and the boombox.
Correct. And then I think I don't remember if it's the same Walkman or if it's a different one that Niles is listening to his self-help tape on.
Yeah, and like that whole like 10 tapes worth of, an audiobook. Yeah, definitely takes me back.
Correct.
I don't know
And
if you ever went on log road trips with your parents and they would put in the tapes.
we didn't we we were more of a music family. We had some tapes, including some cassette tapes, including like Sesame Street's greatest hits.
Hmm.
And from that, we learned our favorite travel song, George Washington Bridge.
I'm
Um,
not familiar.
it's the simplest song. The only words are George Washington Bridge, and you sing it to different tune, like the tune changes over time.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, when you drive over the George Washington Bridge, you sing the song, obviously.
Of course. I don't
So,
believe I've ever driven over.
well, that's clearly why you're not familiar with the song.
Yep. Yep. But yeah, so I feel like um there's also that whole scheme of theirs to like just pretend they're maid service to get into her room.
Yes.
I I don't know how to like really address that because I feel like one there would be more security
Yep.
in general
I
these days,
agree.
especially with them acting so suspicious, like so incompetent and like screaming and like all that kind of stuff. Um so and then again, just if she's such a big star like they're saying she is, again, you'd see more security, and I don't think her manager would just let her go off with these two strangers who posed as maids to get in.
Correct.
I could also see nowadays Fran trying to maybe get her attention via social media or
Yeah.
other kind of forms of trying to get a hold of her to try
Hmm.
to get her to listen to her song. But also these days, Fran could just like post on YouTube herself her song if she wanted to
Correct.
like promote it or whatever. She wouldn't necessarily have to rely on Tasha to like do it.
Correct.
So yeah. Um anything else?
I have two more.
Okay.
Um, well, Three more, actually. First, I'm going to comment again on Tasha's outfit at the very end, that it just looked so dated and weird. I feel like I need to say that again.
Yeah.
The whole concept of Fran trying to like not make Tasha leave empty-handed wouldn't happen today, because like Fran would have texted her and been like, "Oh, but I can't work with you tonight. Like something came up."
Yeah.
Like, so that sort of felt dated. And then finally, the amount of money that Fran thought Val spent versus the amount of money that Val did spend for concert tickets they didn't use.
Yeah.
$50 or $200. That sounds
Yeah.
like
I'm like,
nothing these
lucky
days.
if this is like as big of a star as you're claiming. That's like nothing these days.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah. Good points.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So unfortunately, we can't add to the kiss count. There wasn't any direct mention of the thing, just the general being left to wait.
Correct.
So I believe we're ready for future fun.
All right. So, first, this is not the last time that Maxwell is, believe it or not, unsupportive of Fran and her dreams. In season 5, Fran announces that she wants to be a weather girl. And again, he totally writes her off. I think I talked about this recently, but it's just like this pattern where Fran's like, I'm going to go do this thing. And I'm really excited about it. And he's like, why? You won't be able to do it. And it's just really frustrating. That's one. On the other hand, Fran in one of the first scenes, she comments about, she wonders if she'll have to wait until she's 40 if she'll have another date before she's 40. And good news, guys, good news. She does not have to wait until she's 40 for her next date. Including she goes on a first date with a certain British millionaire in season 5.
What?
And to say it does not go well is putting it nicely.
Okay.
So not only does it not go well, but after the first date, she wears black for 2 weeks because she's in mourning.
Wow.
How badly it went. I will not give any details until we get there, because you wouldn't believe me if I told you. And then finally, do you remember the name that Fran reads on the maid uniform she's wearing?
Concepcion.
Correct. That is actually
Concepcion
is actually the name of Maxwell's secret half sister, to whom his father left the bulk of his estate.
Wow.
Maxwell and his siblings actually contemplate challenging the will, but Fran, goes over and meets Concepcion and her mother, and because of Fran's warmth and friendship, Concepcion decides to share her newfound wealth with her newfound siblings.
Is she a maid?
She is not a maid. She's not a maid. She's a love child of Maxwell's father and a flamingo dancer.
Yeah, I mean, so she could be a maid by profession.
She could be,
but it's not. That would be such an Easter egg in the series.
I don't know if we ever actually find out what Concepcion does, but we do know that she, was single. She lived with a man for a number of years, but she couldn't commit. And Fran's like, there's your DNA test.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
Yeah. I don't recall if we actually find out what she did, but that would be a really deep Easter egg if that was the case.
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready for the episode rating?
I think so.
Okay, this week you get to go first.
Oh, crap. I hate it when it's my turn. So, lovely listeners, as you may recall, we rate each episode from 1 to 5 lipsticks, with 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. I don't really like this episode. I don't go out of my way to watch it. I don't particularly enjoy it, especially with the things we've been pointing out about the timing doesn't make sense, Maxwell being a jerk, Fran just like not being herself, not looking like herself. I guess I'm gonna give it a 3. How about you?
I will also give it a 3 for the same reasons.
Okay, well, that was easy.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, that was kind of a disappointing episode.
Yep.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I don't believe so.
All right, well, that's all we have for you today. We hope you had a fine time with us as we revisited the nanny. Join us next week when we'll be discussing episode 98, You Bet Your Life.
If you would like to reach us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Nanny Revisited. You can also send us email at afinetimenannyrevisited@gmail.com. Have a great week.